red stuff because there's...
Okay, so we are back. We are here. Yes, so I just want a couple of things of housekeeping before we go any further. Some of you in some parts of the world are being clobbered by how many people are viewing this, so if that's the case, there is a low bandwidth option. Also, we are repeating this, which of course you may be seeing the repeat, in which case this is redundant, but we're going to repeat the whole show. So if there was something earlier in the show that you've joined us and you've heard that you've missed, it will in fact be repeated after this. And as we said earlier, if you want to ask us any questions or fire stuff through, use the hashtag in Twitter, fxguidetv. And one of those questions, Jace, came up about frame rates from Epic earlier in the day when we were talking to Ted about the fact that there is now, surprisingly, a Dragon version of the Scarlet, as well as the Dragon version of an upgraded Scarlet that became an Epic, then became a...
Which is fairly new, because that wasn't always going to be the plan.
No.
I didn't think there would be. It's top rack of frame rates is 100 frames, which is for 6K on the Epic. Not sure we've got a top frame rate yet for the Scarlet version. They may not even know that at Red.
Yeah, because what happened is that they said they weren't going to allow a Dragon upgrade to Scarlet. If you heard earlier, Ted said they changed their minds, and of course that's what's come through. I still am sitting on this thing that I said before. I don't want 6K particularly. What I really want is high dynamic range. So.
No, I don't want the data it generates. I want the field of view it's giving me. I want the nearly full frame view. I want the dynamic range, the extra, what we're saying now is 2 to 3 stops of dynamic range. I want the higher ISO, which Ted, if you missed earlier, has not confirmed, but we're talking about 1600, 1800 ISO as a base ISO for Red Dragon for Epic, which is phenomenal. It is bringing them in line with everybody else and what Sony in particular can do, but nonetheless, it's a huge leap from where we are with Epic at the moment. So there's a lot to love, but 6K, yeah, I don't need it. I really don't need. I use 4K to be able to reframe back down if I want to do blow-ups for HD. So yeah.
We were talking earlier about the Cook anamorphics, and of course Arri has now the Alexa line with the 4.3 option that's very specifically designed to allow you to do that kind of anamorphic work. And we've actually seen, in addition to the Cook, which actually I feel is what I want out of an anamorphic, in the sense that it has a kind of an older, not an older feel, but a warmer, kind of more feels anamorphic feel. There's also other anamorphics that are kind of going the other way and trying to be taking out as many of what I might call the anamorphic artifacts as possible.
Yeah, I think I think what we really, people who want the anamorphic look, who want anamorphics, want the anamorphic look. There's a massive market for people taking old anamorphics and taking off and Hawk particularly have done this with their vintage 74s, have taken old anamorphics, taken the coatings off. Everyone's mostly is trying to get back to the look we all kind of grew up with, taking off coatings, finding old lenses, rebuilding old things, and so there's the problem with them is that they're very limited, almost like rental only, because there's just not the old glass to do this with, and it's very labor intensive, as we know, to take coatings off. What Arri seemed to do, we haven't yet seen the anamorphics yet in person, the master anamorphics, but their idea is to have the best of both worlds, the sharpness and the crispness and the resolution of new lenses, but with nice flares and low, to be able to be sharp, low in wide open, which traditionally you always had the problem with older anamorphics. You had to be. Okay, here we now.
We seem to have just flashed up there. I think the guys have got ready some of the footage from earlier.
Yeah, although we couldn't get a live link out of the movie which we just saw demoed. But what we have actually did, we were recording while we were demoing it.
Yeah,
there.
So here is that footage.
So
this is the footage we shot just a few moments ago.
And this is not anybody trying to do a smooth shot. This is someone mucking around with the camera while we actually, while we're talking. So it's really not a fair demo, but in terms of trying to do a really smooth shot. But this is absolutely rock solid. You're not seeing any hand movement whatsoever. You're really seeing the pure input into the camera, and all the bad stuff, all the wobbles, and the horizon is absolutely parked perfect, immovable. Loving it.
Yes, I don't know if my mic was live then. I was just asking for someone to swap a lens, because as you were talking about stuff before, I just wanted to get a different lens swapped on. But,
yeah, right.
Yeah, so the thing about that rig that I just couldn't get over is how light it was. Like, I expected that, because I shot in New Zealand out of the side of a helicopter with a gyro, and it was like really heavy, but we had a pogo stick under it, right?
Yeah.
So when I saw that footage on the net, I was like, oh, okay, so what this is going to be is, I'm not going to be able to hold it for very long, but you held it, I held it wasn't that heavy.
Surprisingly, I think the fact that the weight is underslung, it somehow just feels ergonomically okay, and that's that's a Canon Cinema Prime on a 1DC with zoom with focus motors, transmitters, receivers for all of that stuff, Paralinks, wireless video. So there's a lot of extra other things, and battery packs to run it all, and its own servos. So it's the skeleton of it is all carbon fiber. That really does help. I mean, I don't want to do a 15-minute interview with the thing, but you could easily do. I mean, it's the give and take. Steadicam's hard on the back as well. This will be harder on the arms. You'll have this new generation of Steadicam guys who've been pumping iron this way rather than running upstairs with and having a back brace.
Okay, so while you were talking, we just swapped on a new lens onto this,
onto this one.
Camera here. Now, the reason I did this is because you were talking about anamorphics a second ago. This is a $300-400 lens, but you'll notice it's flaring really well above my head. So this is actually something that I've been working with Matt Duclos from Duclos Lenses. Now, he's a good guy, Matt came up with a way of hacking your lenses. This is a $400 lens to get an anamorphic feel with them. And so we hacked this lens, and we just put it up on the camera right now to show you that it's working.
Let me tell you, you cannot get, I might be schooled here, but it is really hard to get streaky flares out of a real anamorphic this wide. You traditionally need to go to the tighter glass. It's usually the smeary stuff comes in the mid-range.
Well, as part of fxPhD, we've been shooting a lens course, and in fact, hopefully we have some stills from when we were up on the Strip. There was a wedding up there, there's a bunch of stuff, and we were just getting these really gorgeous pictures. It just seemed to me ridiculous to get these kind of images out of like a $300-400 lens, but that's Matt Duclos for you. He's really good, that company, at modding lenses, and he's modded a bunch of your lenses, making them cinevised, or make cinema-type lenses, but then the other thing is, they just know so much about lenses, those guys.
Yeah, this is part of these Rockin' On Raw, part of a set he's working on. We can talk about that? Yes, we can talk about that.
Yes.
Rockin' On Raw is where he's taking coatings away, some of the elements, and building up a whole set of clean, sharp glass, new glass that has put a bit of character into it. There's a lot of work tends to get in lens people getting away flares, but they really don't quite understand we actually want that shit.
Well, this was a modification that cost me exactly 3 cents, and it isn't with the raw lenses that you're talking about. This is just with a normal lens, and we just hacked it. But unfortunately, you have to check out our course at fxphd.com to work out that, amongst many other things, of how you can kind of pimp your lens and make them kind of funky and kind of cool. Now, that's at one end of the spectrum, the big anamorphics. That's a cheat that is like letting someone with $300 do something, or $400 do something kind of similar. Way down at the other end of the spectrum from those expensive lenses is GoPro. So GoPro was very big last year, and then between last year's NAB and here, they released the new camera, which took them at a whole other level. Yep,
as far as I understand, no real big announcements from GoPro on the stand.
But everybody using them.
But everyone's using them, and there's a lot of, and as we talked earlier about the absolute proliferation of aerial vehicle platforms in here, quad, octo, hexacopters everywhere. And I saw this one, this is really interesting. I started to see this little mount everywhere I went. Someone had been going around putting these little rigs on here.
Are you talking the one at the bottom or the helicopter above?
Now this is called the 360 Hero. Okay, so this is a very, very simple, like a CADed, kind of like a plastic formed mount to let you bolt, I think six GoPros, not really necessarily the Hero 3s, but you can put 6 above the water or below.
So you can go underwater with this thing?
Yeah, that's right. And basically, this guy has developed the very, very simple rig to be able to mount all these together. Yeah. It's super lightweight. It's all machined out of one piece of like glass fiber plastic. And he has built the software to be able to stitch all of these into a moving panorama. So you can actually do almost 360 and remove some of the camera, but not all of it. There'll be a point where you actually start photographing yourself, or you in your wetsuit, or the bottom of the quadcopter. but he's got the software to be able to stitch this all together. It's very clever, and I think it's about to turn into a Kickstarter. So watch out for that. I think it's Hero360.com.
So just to be clear about this, I've got the GoPros, which individually are now producing pretty good quality imagery.
Yeah.
But stitched together, I'm going to have a much higher res file than any one GoPro individually.
Yeah.
So
if
I
you
guess
imagine,
I
the Hero 3, which is at a usable frame rate, 2.7K each one. There's no point, unless you want to go 15 frames, you can do 4K in every one. But he's worked out an interesting way of kind of tessellating them all so that they all kind of interlock and easily wrapped around. Oh, it couldn't possibly be very expensive. What I saw, apart from the sheer mind-bending man-hours it would have taken to make this all machined out of one 3D printed. It's basically 3D printed, and that's the way it's going to stay. Everyone you buy will be 3D printed. I don't have a price. We weren't sure we even had time to even feature this today.
But
so
isn't it going to be, as you said, a Kickstarter, right? So
it will be. That will be his. Yes, he's done it and he's ready to go. He can make it. And
do you have a real knack for finding the? I don't know how you do it, because I walk around the floor. There's 95,000 people here. There's like hall after stuff. I walk the same halls that you do. I never find this stuff. I don't know how you do it.
I don't know. I got a little bit more free time than you on the show, but yeah, I'm specifically looking for that weird kind of stuff. I don't know. You got to go way. You got to go deep. You got to go way into the little bowels of the halls and to find this sort of stuff. So that's very clever. So we'll see what we'll love to find out a bit more about that. Get to play with the software once it all comes out.
Yeah, no, it really is good. So we talked a little bit earlier about LED lighting and lights in general. One of the things that I've really moved to is doing big, soft area lights. You do both studio work and exterior work. We were doing a shoot the other night for that Cook stuff, and you were grabbing iPhones out and using those to get eye lights from literally the torch-free app in an iPhone.
Oh yeah, we planned.
We planned immensely. Of course, it cost us $20 to get the showgirls to pose for you for that shot of that.
That's worth it.
Seriously, when you're out in the field, do you take lights with you?
I actually, if I'm doing, I mean, obviously, if I'm, big end of town, I've got, vans and trucks and things. But generally, I will, if I was heading out the door, not knowing what I was really going to be shooting, it'd be a nice, big, huge flexi fill, and one of those ones which probably has 3 or 4 covers in it, where you can turn it into black, you can turn it into silver, to gold, frosted, sharp, all that sort of thing, just all in one pack, and that just can just go as chuck it on the carousel and take it on board. And those little LED just in the hand lights, of which there is a ton, and then some here. Not just the proliferation in the panel stuff. There's a lot of new handheld stuff. Nothing amazing, but just more choices. No, generally in the hand. And actually, a lot of them come with like a snap-on covers where you can actually frost them or make them quite orange to do CTO. And I quite like it. So even if you've got them in the hand, you can have them under light, top light, and if you're shooting in a real situation, you can actually sell it in as like a sodium vapor or an industrial light, or a car indicator, or sell it in as almost like there's a practical or up against some sort of existing light, not trying to say that it's that this is beautiful daylight or anything. And it's beautiful because a lot of them are all dimmable. You can use them as the sun's going down and just keep on dimming them. The color temp doesn't change, obviously. You can just, you can get the ability to really make the most out of the sky, and just when the face is just getting a little bit too dark, just push that little bit in there, and then you can still make the most of that beautiful skies in the background. And that's where the magic is. These cameras are so good at down at that end and getting better and better. Soon you won't need the lights. No, sorry, that's a joke.
Yeah, no, well, it's the quality of light rather than the quantity of it, right? Because we've got the ISO that allows us to get the look without having to pump out vast amounts.
Should we talk a little bit about other stuff at the show, particularly the red booth, if we can call up those files. There's a couple of frames there with the proxy module, which is something everybody has been asking from Red.
Well, because the Alexa was so successful with its recording ProRes on the camera. So that's the module we're seeing now.
Yeah. That's my beautiful handheld work there.
Do we have any idea when and how much?
That's beautiful. Well done. Well done. Good question. I think it's. Thank you very much. Any
it's interesting
price there?
Yeah, because the thing about this module is, I think for some applications people just want 1080p.
Yeah.
And you have a camera, and yes, you can shoot gorgeous stuff. But this quote here from Jared is that nobody should basically be using the proxy stuff. It's kind of interesting. I kind of get where he's coming from. Like if you're doing, obviously, the Great Gatsby, yeah, you're not going to be using the 1080 that would come out of the proxy.
Yeah.
But there are times when you're doing like a webinar, why don't you just use that? Because, you know, you've got one camera maybe that is your primary camera, you're going to use it for a bunch of different productions. But
you're using it, I mean, it's called a proxy for a reason. The main idea is to get you into post quick, get you cutting with some files that look great, and they will immediately link back beautifully to the R3Ds. You don't have to do, you don't necessarily, this is probably the get out of Red Rocket X, Red Rocket Pro jail-free card, I guess. Yeah. So much as you don't need to have the processing power to do that overnight crunching of all your footage, you can actually have your R3Ds, bench them, use the proxies, cut to them, give them to your editor.
We've got the prices up here. Sorry, somebody just tweeted us what was the prices that we were talking about that Red Rocket.
Because if you look at the price of the Red Rocket X card, you know, $6,750 if you're just buying it, if you're not using it as part of a trade-in. This is pretty expensive, and this is really, as Ted says, you can still use your Red Rocket card, but you won't get the grunt power. It's not like the Red Rocket card becomes obsolete. It just becomes less effective because you're cranking through a phenomenally much more amount of data. But if we go back to some of those other clips there, especially the little mini SSDs, because part of the recording, originally when they talked about proxy...
So you're asking for what?
Originally when they talked about proxy modules, it was going to be CF cards.
Right.
Now the media for this is these new mini SSDs, right? So the capacities are 64 and 128 and 256 gig cards. So the hidden sort of cost, I suppose, of the proxy recorder is you have to have these media, but it's not too bad. $395, $575, and $975 for those three capacities. So, and you'll probably get about 3 hours of the ProRes on the 256 gig card. So you're going to need a few of those. So that's going to add a couple of grand to the price of those things. So I think it ends up being maybe $6,000, or no, it's a few grand anyway to get proxies. It depends which makes more sense to you: crunching through the footage with a rocket, or doing proxies. But I don't know. Well, at least they brought it out. We can't say they didn't bring it out. We've done it now. True. We can shut up now about proxies.
We can shut up about proxies. Okay, well that's kind of a good rundown on some of the cool tech that's been happening here. In terms of the RC stuff, we've got some more stuff coming up after the break, because we've got stuff still to come from Blackmagic cameras and stuff. But we're just going to go to a bump now, and we'll be back after the break.
fxguidetv Live at NAB 2013 from Las Vegas is sponsored by The Foundry, developers of creative tools for artists, including Nuke, Hero, Mari, Moto, and more. With additional support from Blackmagic Design, Miller Tripods, Rode Microphones, SohoNet, and the Wooden Camera Company. This netcast is also made possible by the contributions of our FX Insider members.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Man, what a great RC podcast section that was. Lots of fun. Hey, quick thing I want to mention out to those of you who are online. We're having difficulties ourselves seeing the Ustream chat feed, not the Ustream feed itself. So if you have a question, use the hashtag FXGNAB to ask any questions. But now we're going to head over right to the Foundry booth and get it turned around for another demo. Bex?
Okay, hello, welcome back, welcome back. We've got a very exciting presentation coming up now from Stefan Kozinski from Logan Media. They've been using Nuke and Hero in their pipeline, in their commercials pipeline. He's going to be here to show two projects, one of which is Nuke Oblivion, and the other one is Kia Landscape. Is that correct, Stefan?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, so my name is Stefan, and I'm working for Logan. Logan is a medium-sized post-production company, and I try to. I won't be making a demo about Hero and Nuke, because I think Matt and John already did it thoroughly. What I would like to emphasize today is how Hero can be a benefit not only for the creative process, but also from for the IT and for the company itself from a business standpoint. So Logan has been founded in 2001, and I mean the iconic work you might know from us, even if you don't know the name, are mainly the Apple Silhouette commercials, those dancing silhouettes against gradient background for the iPod. He did some viral videos for Gymkhana, and doing some post-production in Zombieland, Avengers, doing some game openings for Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, Call of Duty, Borderlands. We have a wide range of services. We can do design, live action, branding, motion graphics, mainly on After Effects, animation, editorial, CG, visual effects, and of course finishing with the clients. So let me just play 2 movies that will show you a little bit of what we are doing currently.
The Oblivion storm destroyed our world in a matter of days. Omnidirectional winds, fields of searing lightning, torrential rains. As we faced extinction, survivors spoke of a fabled safe haven located in the eye of the storm, the Ark. Rumors spread of heroes who had mastered the elements and led survivors through the wrath of the storm. They are the guides. Facing the unknown, we decided to go and take Oblivion head on.
Now you can get a Nike trainer in your living room.
Launch lower.
And a choreographer. Every child can play and learn on Sesame Street. You can find
Action movies
with the sound of your voice and take them with you. Your music can fill your home. You can search the web for
The Rainforest.
and bring it to life on your TV. Now you can interact with your favorite sports. Entertainment is more amazing with Xbox.
So those 2 projects have been completely comped and edited in Euro, and comped in Nuke, excuse me, and edited in Euro. Comped in Nuke using the 3D capabilities also of Nuke. We had a lot of interaction in between the live action, set extensions, so Nuke was really helpful for that. So here's the list of the software we are using in Logan. We are doing some After Effects, Cinema 4D, Final Cut, Flame. A lot of Hero, a lot of Mari, some Maya, Nuke, Smoke. And we are working on multiple platforms. It could be Linux, OS X, or Windows. The company is mainly, I would say, station-oriented. I mean, as opposed to other companies who are much more like Flame-oriented. So everything happens, or most of the things happens on the desktop level. The daily needs are, for a company like us, of course, conforming some image, some footage coming from different formats. They can come from telecine companies with or without time codes. It can be DPX, XR. It can be iRaw, TGA, whatever we can think of. When we make the footage available for artists to work with, we need to have a very standardized naming convention, and also a standardized hierarchy onto our main server. We don't want to change the hierarchy of the server for each new project. So we try to keep artists into an environment they are familiar with. So we need to standardize that. We need to be able to review quickly the work in progress, 1 or several times a day. We need to be able to accommodate changes into the edit according to client's request or even artist suggestion. And we need to be able to quickly export this work in progress, usually in several forms. You know, it can be movies, image sequence, a 15-second cut down, a 30-second cut down, with or without shot information burning into the image. And from an IT standpoint, we need to minimize the amount of data we have to deal with. And that's a big challenge for a company like us. We don't have a lot of money to buy a lot of storage, so we try to keep that as low as possible. And of course, we need to have like client supervised finishing sessions with Flame artists for the final delivery. So let's see what Hero did for Logan. And let's start with what Hero wasn't doing for Logan when it wasn't there. So before Hero, this was like kind of the workflow. So the conform was done in Flame and Smoke, as well as the export of the footage to make them available for the artist. And all the daily update of the work in progress were done on those two platforms as well. And we were doing the finishing. Well, the daily updates was not that easy to do in Flame because of availability issue due to the cost of the machine. And my workaround was to view the daily work in Nuke and to also do some daily assembly, daily work in progress posting, all that stuff coming from Nuke. So this was the kind of pipeline we had. Edit was done in Final Cut. Conform was done in Flame or Smoke. It was more or less the same platform. And all these actions here that are like import and export to the main NAS to have a data server, all those steps here were done manually. So not only they were creating a lot of human error because usually the Flame operator was not able to always output the images in the proper folder with the proper name scheme. But also it was generating a lot of data duplication. We had like the data onto the smoke red area, then we were exporting that to the sun, then we were exporting that into the Flame. So we are duplicating data also onto the Flame frame store. And each time we were loading a work in progress, like I don't know, like a work in progress comp or work in progress animation from the main data server to Flame, we were also duplicating the data. So you can imagine that after like a 2 months production, for example, you had like 3 platforms to archive. That was a big nightmare. Also, all this process of exporting by hand and importing manually was taking a lot of time. At the end of the day, we were able to see the work maybe like 1 every other day. That was an issue. So my workaround was to redo the edit in Nuke. So each one of those little nodes here is actually a shot input. On the top of each one of those nodes, you have 3 read nodes, who are like the footage itself, the animation line test, for example, here, and let's say the comp, the work in progress, the comp. Okay, so every night or several times a day, I had to update the read nodes, looking for a new version. So we made some tools to be able to look for the latest versions, but that was not too much of an issue in terms of updating the version, but it was an issue when I wanted to update the edit, because the creative director can tell me, okay, so what about making that shot like 3 frames longer, you know, and what about this one? Maybe you can just slip it 2 frames. So each time I had to make a modification into the edit, I had to go into all those time offsets to sync my shot with the new version of the edit, change all the switches here, because it's a big switch with keyframes to be able to accommodate the change. So I was spending my time doing some updates into the edit. I was not reviewing the shots anymore. I was missing a lot of glitches. I was not able to optimize the workflow. And I mean, at the end of the day, I was in the office until 11 in the evening just to update an edit. So the challenge, after what I explained, really, it's like the cost of the daily conform. So you couldn't do that on Flame. The flexibility of handling modern images, Nuke was doing that perfectly well. I mean, Flame wasn't. We were not able to translate the speed change, all the time warp that were done in Final Cut to the desktop stations. That was not going through the Autodesk suite. We were generating a lot of human error, data duplication. It was not really flexible to reconfirm the work in progress image sequence into the edit. When we were doing that on Flame, artists not always give you an image sequence with the same frame in or frame out. Flame was always bringing back everything at frame 1. So it was impossible for a Flame operator to be sure that the clip he was inputting into the Flame was locked with the clip he already had into the Flame. So that was taking a lot of time. So poor flexibility in reconforming. Once again, no translation of the speed change. Artists were not able to see their work in progress. They were not able to have access to the Flame. They were not. The Flame artist was booked with clients, or he was doing his own comp. He couldn't also accommodate the artist's need to see, okay, how does look my latest animation into the edit? I mean, that was impossible. And also, I mean, when the edit was done on Flame, everything was stuck on the Flame, so there was no way for me to open the project onto another platform and make sure that I had the latest comp or latest animation line test into the edit. So that shows a little bit what Flame was doing. So Flame was doing stuff like all the stuff that is in orange. Flame was accommodating it like more or less well, you know. Everything that was red, I mean, was not accommodated by Flame at all. So at the end of the day, I mean, we were making a lot of mistakes, poor availability, a lot of cost. Flame is expensive, as I said, and a lot of data duplication due to the copy of the data from the data server to the frame store. Nuke was doing a little bit better over there. I mean, it was still a pain in the arse to make the footage available for artists from Nuke, because that was not reading like Harry Row, for example, and there was no way to do editing. And it was difficult also to standardize the name, because, I mean, we had to output the image by hand. All the rest was okay, but that was still like taking a lot of time and being not very cost effective, because it was taking a lot of time for the visual sup to update the edit. After Hero, we were able to streamline the workflow a little bit. And now, instead of having like a flame or smoke-centered workflow, everything is going through Hero. Hero is now the hub for our workflow. So still, the edit is done in Final Cut. The dailies and the footage are going into Hero. With the EDL, we can rebuild the conform. Then we export everything onto the NAS, onto the data server. Here, it's still some data duplication, but we cannot do otherwise. We have at some point to convert the Harry Row or the native format into AXR or DPX, so artists can work with. But now it's not a manual operation anymore. Everything is handled by a template. So we know that whatever the project we are working on, the images will always be at the same place, in the same format, with the same name scheme. When it comes about updating the shots into Hero, it's just like a version up, as Matt and John showed you just before. That doesn't take more space because Hero is desktop, so it's just like a link to the server. I mean, everybody has access to the same images, to the same storage here, all the desktop station, and the artists can also use Hero Player. Open the Hero project, you know, the daily Hero project, have the last update, and see their shot or their play blast or whatever they want into the context of the edit. Once the project is over, then from Hero we export an XML, and we give that to Flame, and Flame will load the sequence of AXRs, conforming those sequences according to the last changes that have been done in Hero. We never go back to Final Cut anymore. Everything stays in Hero over there. And then we export from Flame when we need to do a digital delivery, or we just lay off on tape when it's about a tape delivery. So we can see that now, I mean, I really use Flame only for what it does the best, which is like finishing with clients. broadcast monitor, real-time playing. That's pretty cool. But all the rest now is seemingly handled by Hero/Nuke, but mainly Hero over there. So let me show you the last project we've just done with Hero. That's a good project because it's also live action and CG, so we had a lot of line tests, a lot of version of the comps.
The new 2014 Kia Sorento, designed to make nature more comfortable.
So for a project like this, if you remember my little Nuke script with all the input node, this is now the equivalent in Hero. So that's super easy. I have a layer for the footage. I have a layer for the animation and a layer for the comp. In each one of the layers, I can decide to enable or disable the version of the shot I want to show to the client, version up, version down. Even on a more complex project with more shots or more versions, with, for example, alternate animation or alternate comp, that's still super easy. And you have an overview of your whole project, you know, with thumbnail. So you know that what you are looking at. I mean, even from far away, you can recognize which shot it is. That's really easy to zoom in, zoom out. You can go back to Nuke if you need to open one of those shots in Nuke. That's really easy. So at the end of the day, Hero help us in reducing a lot the amount of manual tasks, which reduce the amount of human error. We sped up a lot our export and import process, update process. We are also reducing the cost, because now we can use Flame for only what we need, which is interactive sessions. So we minimize the overtime, of course, and we have smaller archives. And that's big for IT. I mean, instead of having like 3 or 4 terabytes to archive for a project now, we are down to 1.5 or something like this. So the workflow is much more streamlined. It's cross-platform. I mean, I don't have now to look for an artist working on OS X, on Linux, or on Windows. I mean, whichever talent is available can walk in, and all the tools are available for him. We have a real-time communication in between the editor, the producer, the creative director, and the artist. Any changes can be seen real-time. And we have improved a lot the data and metadata sharing across platform, which include like speed changes, optical flow, and time code, obviously. So if I have some time, I'm off. I'm available. I'm around. So if you have any question, come to me. We can talk about the workflow. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have some questions I'm kind of curious about because scripting is really interesting because it's really how you can take Hero to the next level. Is that scripting to do? How big is the staff that you have to do the scripting hooks that you did to automate some of your processes?
We were 2 until now. It's mainly the soup we are doing the scripting. I'm alone now, so
that's you. So you.
So yeah. So it's me. It's me.
Well, because I think some people, I mean, one of their fears is having to do all the scripting themselves. I mean, you're obviously very technical, but talk about the realities of actually doing the scripts. Are there things that are pre-made that you have to modify to suit your own needs? Is it learning from scratch?
I mean, okay. I learned from scratch a lot. I mean, more and more artists now know Python. Everything is Python-based in Nuke, Hero, so that's really easy for artists to do their own tools. I have to mention that, as opposed to other vendors, we have a very good relationship with Foundry and the support that Foundry gave us in terms of coding and tip and tricks for adjusting the tools to our needs is very valuable. I mean, we have with Foundry always someone to ask question and like 99% of the time we have the proper answer. We are really like, foundries have a safety net. It's not only the company selling the software and say, hey, okay, let's see each other in 1 year when we have to renew the maintenance. No, we can talk to them whenever we want. So that's great.
Right. Now, one thing I might have missed in the whole chart, what about things like during the process getting things out to clients for approval and things like that? Because I've heard some people, are you doing some clever stuff with works in progress to get out and get approvals in your pipeline? Because I've heard a lot of people doing that with Hero.
Well, I mean, getting the approvals from the client, I mean, there is of course the human aspect of it. The technical aspect is pretty simple because from Hero we can have several edits, several forms of the edit. We can easily show to the client the last version of the edit with the last animation, if the animation is like is latest in comparison to the comp. You know, we can do a mix. We can do like something with all the comps, even if it's not the last version of the animation in the comp. We can do something with only the animation. We can do like mix and match. Like, okay, let's put like the last the version of the animation. But that's pretty easy.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just managing versions a lot of times that we would run into in finishing commercial. You have so many versions of shot. You don't know what the current shot version is necessarily when you have multiple artists working on it. It seems like Hero provides a platform to allow you to keep better track of that, though. And
yes, but the thing is that we have a little bit of a pipeline in the office that helps us track that. Whichever the artist is working on the shot, it always falls in the same folder. This is where Hero gets the shot from. So once we know in Hero which version of the shot we like or we want to present, that's really easy for us because we have the full name, because we have the proper location, because it's still on the data server, so we have access to the file system attributes. That's really easy to go back and to find out who was the artist working on that. And I mean, that's a friend used to say that. I mean, he likes this term, but with working with a Hero in Nuke, it's like your file system becomes the pipeline, more or less. You know, you don't have to have this big infrastructure or like asset management structure behind that, because you're still taking advantage of the data that are on your file system, which you lose usually as soon as you go to another platform like the frame store or any other finishing box, because then your image sequence is imported into this new machine, and this new machine lost completely track of original users and attributes of the file.
Yeah, and I think actually in talking to people who've been using it, I was talking to Mike Rami at Zoic, and they have a pipeline on TV shows where they utilize efficiency as a way to kind of battle some of the stuff that's going on in the VFX industry right now, the time pressures and things like that.
Yeah.
It seems like by automating a lot of those processes, you have some efficiencies that help you kind of compete nowadays, right? It's like, it's a reality now that we have to deal with those tough budgets.
Yes. I have to say, when I arrived in Logan, like 6 years ago, this was a very small shop doing some commercials, and it was very, very like they were working like artisans. So they have like OS X desktop. They didn't have like any tracking system for their data. They were like doing some shots in After Effects. The artist was saving that onto his desktop, giving that to the Final Cut artist on a thumbnail, on a thumb drive, you know, to be able to cut that into the edit. And I think I have the feeling that for a while it has been like that in the commercial world, you know. But now commercial world is that becomes so complex that we need this kind of tracking tools, and we need tools like Nuke and Hero to be able to be as efficient as feature film industry was, or is actually.
Yeah, very true. Now imagine, I don't know, but have you been using 1.7 beta?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask you, we touched on it earlier, but I want to dive into kind of a detail maybe a bit because it is new. And I mentioned earlier in the segment that we're doing a course at FX PhD on Hero with Ugo Guerra from the Mill in London, who's a fantastic user of it. And he was like, you got to have 1.7 on the VPN because we have the software there that people can follow along with the courses and things like that. Or I'm not doing the course for you guys. That's how much he liked the improvements in it. But From the standpoint, let's dive into detail on what you think the biggest change is in that release.
Well, we did kind of a few different key areas. We spent a lot of time optimizing the editing, the timeline kind of interface there to make the editing stuff a lot faster and more efficient. Jack Binks did a great job of going through and really thinking through the hotkeys and how you need to group things so you can work efficiently. You've got all your kind of play controls at one hand location. You've got things grouped in really logical ways so you can move through the timeline much quicker and have all the kind of common things you need to do right at your fingertips, so you're not kind of going back and forth, especially if you're a pen user. You're picking up the pen, putting down the pen, picking up the pen, putting down the pen. But if you can keep your hands on the keyboard and go through and like mark in, mark out, doing source record, having a proper 2-up view, all that sort of thing. People were saying, like, we're using it a bit, we're not trying to be a full editing system, but we need to do some editing in here, and it's just a little bit cumbersome, and can you do anything about that? So that's one of the things we tried to address, because you spend so much time on that sort of stuff that we need to make it more efficient and make it fast and easy. We did a lot of work on the caching, improving the playback performance. We've got a new pausing feature on the cache, so just like Nuke, you hit P and the viewer will pause the caching, but it also knows to do that automatically when it goes into the background. So if you switch over to Nuke, if Hero's trying to fill up a timeline, it'll automatically go into pause mode when it loses focus. And plus just improving the decode speed on different readers, improving the like the upload speed into the graphics card for the images, all that kind of stuff. And we continue to refine that with every version. We also did a bit of work on exports, so now with stereo audio bounce down. What else? There's a adjustment now for the audio delay. So if your audio, you got a bunch of cables going off somewhere and it's not in sync with the video, just pop up the gear menu in the viewer, and you can adjust the delay on the audio or the ahead, whatever, so that it's in sync. So there's just a lot of little refinements like that all throughout the application as well. It's one of the biggest releases we've done.
Okay, now this is a bit unfair because you just shipped this, but what do you need to do next? I mean, what's the next big thing that people are asking you for? In fairness, I mean, it's like what's next on the plate? Do you think?
Yeah. So for the people who might have not caught the tech preview earlier today, one of the things we're going to be working on is bringing Hero and Nuke much closer together, like really close, like all the panels in one application, and being able to just pop into a node graph straight off the timeline. That's obviously, we've got a prototype. There's a lot of work to be done to kind of do the underlying things that'll make it really smooth, but that's obviously one important thing. We've had a lot of requests for things like annotations, LUT per shot, just kind of the standard things that are more Hero's bread and butter as it is today, that we'll be putting some time into.
Well, I got to say, we were doing the live streaming online, and people on Twitter went pretty crazy when they saw Nuke, Windows inside Hero, and the stuff that you could do with it. So if you missed that demo live on the stream, we're going to be replaying it later. If you're here at the show, be sure to check it out as well, because it's something totally worth seeing. For those of you who are here, I also want to point out that online at fxguide, if you go to fxguide.com/NAB live, you can sign up for a giveaway that the Foundry is kindly running. Just sign up, give them your info, and you're entered in a drawing for things like Quadro cards or graphics cards, software, copies of the optical flare plugin that they had over on the booth. So be sure to check that out. Those of you who are online and watching the stream, it's just down in the bottom, right below the video stream, so you can sign up for that and hopefully get entered the drawing, which will happen at the end of this week after the show. So if you're watching this on a replay, you still have time to enter for the giveaway. Well, we've got a lot of great stuff still coming up online. We have a lot of great interviews here at the Foundry booth as well. They have a lot of great presentations, things from Method Studios, look at Moto from our friends across the pond. But anyway, we've got a lot of that coming up, so stay tuned.
Okay, round of applause.
fxguidetv Live at NAB 2013 from Las Vegas is sponsored by The Foundry, developers of creative tools for artists, including Nuke, Hero, Mari, Moto, and more. With additional support from Blackmagic Design, Miller Tripods, Rode Microphones, SohoNet, and the Wooden Camera Company. This netcast is also made possible by the contributions of our FX Insider members.
And I also want to thank, on behalf of the team here, the guys at Shutterstock, because they've been providing us with footage and stuff, so it's really great. And a lot of people have come together and partnered for stuff here at FX Guide, which is kind of great. It all actually comes back to you guys who, of course, why we're here. And kind of humbled by the kind of response we've been getting. Today also, but I mean generally, like there's, at any given time, hundreds of thousands of people at FX Guide. In fact, we're about 6.5 million uniques a year now, so we're just absolutely like thrilled to death with everything that you guys are doing. So we thank you for supporting FX Guide. And I kind of wanted to just like take a sort of moment out of the kind of fun stuff to be kind of serious for a second. I was traveling last night to a function and I saw a strike that was happening outside the convention center. We got a few shots I took from the taxi outside, and this is not related to our industry in particular, but basically what you've got is a situation which a bunch of guys were protesting out the front, and I sort of stopped to wonder what was going on, and basically apparently it was a bunch of taxi drivers and they'd lost their benefits and lost some access. I don't really know the full details, I'm not pretending that I do, but I was just struck by the fact that the group seemed to be quite unified and pulling together as a group, and they're trying very hard to have their case heard. And of course one of the things they were doing, that was disrupting the NAB conference. And of course, depending on your point of view, if you were trying to get a taxi last night and it was absolutely impossible to get one, you'd be pretty annoyed about that. And if you were someone like me who was in a taxi already, maybe that's changed your point of view. But either way, you have to admit that they were pulling together as a group. And of course, it's one of the big issues that's happened in the last 12 months in our industry, is the idea of us pulling together as a group. And at FX Guide, we've been involved with the first town hall. We were very involved with bringing this issue to the kind of the forefront, but by no means were we the leaders in this. There have been a lot of people that have been leading that pack, and we've just been trying to cover it. But whether you're pro-union, whether you're in sort of behind the idea of having some kind of organised trade organisation, our community, and this is my point, our community is one of the strongest things we have. And I get that sense when I come here to NAB, because an enormous number of people that turn up, people have been coming here at the booth and saying hi to us. FX PhD obviously is a very tight community, but there is an enormous amount that we can do by pulling together and combining stuff. And I just wanted to take a moment out, because as we've been here at the NAB, there has been another company that's had layoffs, and it just seems like kind of wrong in this environment where we've seen problems with everyone from Rhythm and Hughes to our friends who are doing traditional and computer animation to companies around the world that have been pulling back, not to acknowledge the fact that times are really tough. And we get that from firstly, I guess, the GFC, which obviously hit, globally, and then just from our industry, which has been struggling to kind of find the right paradigms and shifts. And here at this conference at NAB, there's been a lot of stuff about moving to second screen, about alternate ways of monetizing stuff. But I've got to say, a lot of those models don't necessarily provide a stable environment right now. They're kind of still developing, and as a consequence, a lot of people are being caught by the industry influx and caught by some of the industry practices that we've either inherited or fallen into. Anyway, I know a bit of a downer, but at FX Guide we're really serious about this, and over the next period as we move forward, we'll be continuing to cover the issues that are not just US focused, that they're a global thing affecting friends and colleagues who are working in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, and around the world. All right, well, John's back from the main stage.
Howdy, go.
So I just wanted to discuss one of the things that I've been noticing when I've been walking around the show floor, which is it's not going to get press, it's not going to be a really big thing, but there's a big move to trying to allow facilities to move to these higher workflows like 4K, and particularly Ultra HD I mentioned before, and the 6G implementations of being able to have much higher bandwidth down stuff. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but on a lot of the booths, especially over in the broadcast in A Hall, which I confess I wouldn't get to if I didn't have to walk through it to get to our hotel. It is a big issue. Every time there's one of these technological implementations, at a post house, you're faced with the issue of like, do I have to recable? Do I have to, well, it used to be get new VTRs. The hell of an infrastructure cost. It's hard to charge for that with clients.
It certainly is, and that's true in the Blackmagic Design booth. You saw their converters now 6G capable, right? And that what that means. And it is an interesting conundrum, because actually in the United States, which I'm most familiar with, the TV stations even haven't made the move yet to HD fully. So we're at this point from a broadcast standpoint where they're starting to build the infrastructure. They're online, like live news broadcasts, things like that. But there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes where they're actually still working in standard definition on many of the local stations here in the United States. So we're already talking about that next level as well, which is a substantial investment, an investment that those stations haven't even made in HD yet, which is pretty incredible. So maybe they've lucked out, one could argue, and can make that leap, but you're right about that kind of investment that it takes.
I think at a personal level, the thing that I'm really taking out from what's been happening here is that if you're going to invest in something as an individual, invest in glass, because everything else after that seems to be changing on, especially cameras. I mean, seeing such an evolution in camera tech in my lifetime. But I mean, at a post level, I just honestly think, unless you can use it now, don't buy it now, because stuff is moving so fast.
I think we talked about it after the HPA Tech Conference that I went to. They had a really interesting presentation from the EBU, the European Broadcast Union, where they had a long period of testing with consumers, testing various formats on Ultra HD displays. It was quite interesting. They would play them 720p footage, get their reaction to it, play them 1080 footage, and then also play them, after that, the Ultra HD footage at close to 4K on those displays. It was quite interesting on the graph. 720p was here, 1080p was here about next to it, and then just a little tick up, the Ultra HD was substantially, from the graph, much better.
Oh, that sounds good.
And it was statistically, I mean, they could prove that yes, everyone said it was much better.
Sounds good.
Zoom out the graph and you look at it and you basically have 100% of the graph, and we're talking about the top 10% that they were showing before. So the difference between, this is consumers, and they were admittedly seeing uncompressed 720p, 1080p imagery on the monitor. There's much different that goes through when you compress it in the stream. But it does actually, those of us who were there, kind of go, why are we doing this? For broadcast, and I'm not saying for post and feature films, it's a different aspect, but broadcast. It was an interesting example.
I mean, obviously, if something really important is happening, you'll watch it on anything, right? So if I'm seeing an Olympics and Australia that's about to win a medal and you can show me it on iPhone, I'm going to watch it at 360p. But by the same token, I mean, I do appreciate going to a cinema and having a really good theatrical experience, as we saw by films that have been done in IMAX and then projected in these really, really gorgeous resolutions.
And the 4K monitors here on the show floor, oh my God.
There are some really big-ass 4K monitors here. And also, there's that situation of tiling 4 HD monitors to get you that, like, big kind of image. And, people are saying, oh, yeah, well, it's really great if you're doing post-through. But my problem is, if you're the post house, getting back to that business model problem, and by the way, this stuff to do with business models is some of the stuff that we'll be covering in FX PhD, because we have a part of that which is called Background Fundamentals, where we deal with kind of issues that aren't gear and aren't kind of maybe as cute and funky, but at a business level, you have to work out where you're going to make your investments, and getting that ROI is really difficult, because people come to you and they say, well, in the early days it was like, post this all HD. Well, have you got any more money? No, but that's what you have to do to get the job.
Right.
And if now everyone's saying post it in 4K or you're not going to get the job, and you go, well, hang on, is people not watching this in 720p or something? That's kind of overkill.
Yeah, and there was a day, and I remember when you first made that transition to HD in broadcast and commercials and theatrical, that on Flame, my normal flame rate was $900 an hour, but if you were working on HD, it was $1,500 an hour, and those realities just aren't, frankly, present nowadays. In addition to, frankly, the financial standpoint of things, there's a deadline standpoint. I feel continual crunch from deadlines that have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter and wanting more and more and more. So you put all the things together, and that's what we're running into.
Yeah, but see, the other problem is, and it's a catch-22 this, right? Because we were reporting earlier, DaVinci's come out with Resolve 10. Awesome, right? But this is software that used to cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now it costs like $1,000. Now you get it free if you buy the camera we're filming it on now. They get that. Now they come up with a new version. It now does live. It does a whole lot of new stuff. The upgrade, free. And so what you're doing is it's great, right? Like on the upside, if you want to get into DaVinci grading, and we obviously teach that at PhD, awesome, you can get into it for nothing. But if you're the facility that just built an incredibly expensive suite and your business model was pulling in people with that expensive high-end grading, you don't have enough time to get a return on investment to pull that back. So there is an enormous amount about our business right now which is looking forward and trying to make those key decisions. If you make the wrong decisions, the margins are so razor thin, you're toast. Yeah, it's really a difficult time in the industry, but 4K is the word this year. I think if there was something here at the show, that was from a manufacturer standpoint of getting
people to buy the equipment and software. That's certainly what's being pushed this year.
Yeah, well, as I was saying to Jason earlier, and by the way, I want to thank Jason for the RC. He'll be appearing again later as we do one of the other interviews, but we've got him coming for a Blackmagic camera interview. But you've also got Adobe coming up on the show.
Yeah, why don't we actually run down the schedule really quick of what's coming up. Really cool coming up. We've got Jeremy Hunt. We're going to be interviewing right here after the break. And then following that up, speaking with Philippe Serrero, the lead product designer of Smoke and Flame. It's kind of an update, because I believe it was a year ago, as we talked earlier, that they first launched Smoke on Mac here at NAB. After that, we've got another Foundry demo taking a look at Moto, some really nice animation work that's being done
I'm
overseas.
looking forward to that Moto one.
Yeah, that's seems nice. And he actually talks, he's going to be talking a lot about the renderer. They're actually using the renderer in Moto, not dealing with anything else as part of that. So that's an interesting thing. I'd actually like to know more about that in the Q&A session. I think we'll take the opportunity to ask that question. Then following that, we've got Steve Ford from Adobe. We're going to talk about some of the new tech in After Effects, some really nice refined edge tool, utilizing some image processing tech. Obviously Cinema 4D, which is pretty cool as part of that. We'll cover more coverage of the Blackmagic design announcements, and then finally basically finishing up the day with a presentation from Method, who of course does great work.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I was sorry to interrupt you. I actually want to take over doing some of that Q&A, because you're like having too much fun up there. You've done the first few. I'm going to take over and have a bash, give you a break. But the thing that we just want to repeat is that, of course, as I started out this whole thing, we do this because of the donations and support you guys have given us, especially in the Insider program. The Insider program is one of the things that keeps FX Guide being able to produce stuff like this, and we want to thank you guys that are members of Insider, and of course our sponsors like the Foundry and all the other equipment manufacturers that have come together to help us put this all together. It's been a huge collective effort, and our crew, of course, but yes. Yeah,
of course, a great crew this year, fantastic. But now what we want to do, as Mike mentioned, we just launched a new term over at fxphd.com. I mentioned it in the Hero presentation. We've got a fantastic new Hero course, but why don't we take a look at some more highlights in the term at FXPHD.
Thanks, John. One of the things we pride ourselves on here is really covering 3D tracking and object tracking. We have a new Synthesize 204 course. Victor Walensky is back, and well, it's a 200-level course, but if you've ever done one of Victor's courses, you'll know a 200-level course is pretty hardcore, as I'll let Victor explain.
Hello. I want to show you some of the shots that we are going to be using on this term for Synthesize. This is one of the shots, for example, that we will be using. As you can see, it doesn't look like an extremely complicated shot. The problem is the huge amount of motion blur that we have here when the camera is rotating. It will present some problems and some drifting. Pretty much all this is done using manual trackers. That is one of the things that I want you become really good on over the 10 lessons of this course, because that's what is going to be your better tool to distinguish yourself from other match moving artists. We'll be also using the face editor and the nodes to do several things that in the past were very complicated, like aligning the shots, correctly scale them and make them have the proper orientation. There's a lot of tricks and a lot of things that can be done with the face view that in the past were sort of like extremely complicated in Synthesize, and now they had become a lot easier to work with. I cannot show you in just a few seconds everything that we're going to have in here, but I can tell you it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a lot of manual tracking and very challenging shots that I hope you will really enjoy. So see you later. Bye-bye.
I want to talk to you now about two new rendering courses, because we've always taken rendering pretty seriously here at FX PhD. One is a 200-level production rendering course in Mental Ray. The other, physically plausible shaders in RenderMan.
Well, I'm here with John Tojek, who's teaching our new Maya and Mental Ray course this term. Hey, thanks so much for being part of FX PhD.
It's my pleasure.
Well, why don't we start by finding out a little bit about your background, because it's pretty interesting.
Well, in the past, like late 90s, I worked at Alias. So it was during the time when Maya was created, SGI and Alias merged, and there I was a demo artist and trainer. So I have a long background of training people with Maya. More recently, since then, I worked in films and commercials in LA and all over the world. So I recently finished The Hobbit, lighting, and Super 8 at ILM.
Well, in general terms, then, why don't you tell us a bit about what you've got planned for the course this term?
Well, I'm going to start my class by going over the rules of lighting. And there are some important things that we always do when we start a new shot. We're looking at the plates, and there's things about scale, light, physics, and the renderer that we're using. We're going to follow a set of rules. But as we get farther down the production of a shot, we have to throw away those rules one at a time and make the good images. And I'm just going to show how to make a final image from our plate, our HDR, and our sources.
Well, fantastic. Now, we've obviously done a lot of courses at FX PhD over the years. What would you say to someone who's taken some of our courses in the past? I mean, what are they going to get out of it that's new this term?
Well, I have a lot to offer as a trainer in Alias and Maya for a long time, so I'm going to show you many different options of ways to do things, to get the lighting done. In addition to that, I will be evaluating the work of the students. I want to look at your work and give you a critical evaluation that can help you make better images.
Yeah, I think that's really a great opportunity because a couple times during the term I'll be sending out projects that he's shown in the course. You guys can submit them and get reviews. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to the April term. Thanks so much, man.
Sure.
RMS 201 is Physically Plausible Shading in RenderMan Studio. It's a brand new course with the very latest RenderMan Studio, RMS 4, which incorporates the Physically Plausible Shading paradigm. We're going to take a look at that, and I'm Christos Obretnov. So why this new course in RenderMan Studio? Well, so much has changed with Physically Plausible Shading and its implementation in RenderMan, and the latest RenderMan Studio RMS 4 supports this new paradigm, and it's a system of new lights and shaders, which include area lights, environment light, importance sampling, and ray tracing. So it's really important, if you're using RenderMan Studio for production, to be up on the very latest. And my teaching philosophy is we're not just going to be pushing buttons in a software package. Yes, it's a course on RenderMan Studio, but we want to learn the science behind the rendering. We want to describe RenderMan's implementation of the techniques. We want to do practical examples in RenderMan Studio. That's what the course is about. But also, we want to explain what's happening under the hood once we've done that. So let's take a look at what's going on beyond the buttons. Let's look at some of the shaders and the techniques under the hood. So to start off with, we're going to just take a look at the UI of RenderMan Studio so we know where everything is. We've got our physically plausible surface shaders that live on the shelf and in Hypershade, as well as our physically plausible lights. And we want to know where all this UI stuff is in the plugin, as well as our RenderMan menu, where we can do all our different settings through there. So we'll take a look at that to start off with. And then just to give a quick overview of the entire course, in Class 1, we're going to do the new features overview and the background of physically plausible shading concepts. We're going to spend 2 classes on image-based lighting. Then we're going to do transparent objects using RMS glass. Then we're going to go on to the GP surface, which is a general purpose surface shader, and the physically plausible AOVs. We're going to look at ray trace subsurface scattering. That's a single pass approach. Area lights are really important in this new physically plausible shading paradigm. Also our GI light, which is our global illumination. Then rib files in RMS 4 to see where we can look for troubleshooting when we're working in production. And finally, a ray traced re-rendering, which is just amazing with these new physically based shaders. You can really see stuff in real time as it's progressively ray tracing. So here's an example of how we're going to break down a lot of the different shaders and techniques in RenderMan Studio 4. So for example, when we talk about RMS glass, we want to look at the science first of behind, like what's going on here. So we're going to look at refraction, angle of refraction, and incidence. Then we're going to do a render in RenderMan Studio once we get the concept. So here I have an actual render that I just did in RenderMan Studio of this beautiful wine glass. And then we're going to take a look at the settings in RenderMan Studio, like what did it take to get here and what are the best settings in production to use. So we're going to look at, for example, in this glass example, absorption, roughness, indirect light samples, the maximum specular value, etc. So we're going to look at this kind of stuff for each class of the course. And then it's not a programming course, but we do want to take a look at the shaders that RenderMan Studio generates, because it will generate these shaders when you're rendering with them. And we just want to see, hey, what's going on? Maybe we want to change something. We want to customize something for production. How do we do that? And where do we put that so RMS picks it up? So that's the kind of breakdown we're going to do for all aspects of this course, for all the shaders, all the lights as well, the area lights, the GI light, environment light, IBL, also our scattering techniques and GP surface shader. So we want to have a kind of nice, deep overview as well as practical know-how. And also, there's so many other new topics that are in the very latest RenderMan Studio 4, like transient photon maps, volume rendering, dynamic binding, and depending on how the classes go and how the forums go and interest, these are kind of optional topics that we could cover if we have time for them.
Hi, and welcome back. And my special guest is Jeremy. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
So, gosh, I don't even remember when I first saw your first film, but it was a viral masterpiece. When was that?
That was 2000.
Really?
Yeah.
So we were both pretty much the same age, right?
Yeah, we still look very good.
Exactly the same. I haven't lost any hair or anything. Yeah, no, it's good. Okay, so come back to what you've been up to since then. But most recently, you've done this other film in relationship to Autodesk and smoke. Something pretty close to my heart because you smoke and stuff. Tell us about that.
I was contacted by Autodesk. I downloaded the pre-release for Smoke and loved it, sent out a tweet, and got a response saying, hey, we should talk. Turns out that they were looking for someone to come in and create a short film that kind of highlighted what Smoke could do, and they wanted to work with me, so there we go.
Well, the whole clip is obviously available online, but we've got a section from it so we can have a chat about it. So let's have a look at that now. This is picking up the story sort of 3/4 of the way in, and we'll come back and have a chat about it right after it.
Thank God you're here. What took you so long?
What are you doing here?
Stop wasting time. Do you think you can disarm it? Careful! You might set it off.
What are you talking about? Just a green button.
Okay, so a bit of fun. We've all had fix it in post. In fact, I went to get some t-shirts made once with these pockets upside down, and on the back it just said, "I'll fix it in post."
Perfect.
I was also tempted to make one, go fix it yourself in post. Anyway, okay, so you got the project. How quickly did you come up with the idea?
Really quickly. Turned it around in about a week. Just brainstormed.
Wait,
and
the idea or the whole
idea.
thing?
No,
okay, I was going to say.
Oh yeah, whoa. Yeah, turned it around. Once Autodesk approved everything, we set up our shoot, which was about 4 days, and then we had about 2 months of post.
So, what do you actually shoot on? Like, what's the material? Like, what was the sort of process from a technical point of view, the pipeline?
We shot Red Epic at 5K. There's a handful of DSLR shots. I think there's one GoPro shot, but primarily Epic.
Okay, so I picked that particular sequence, so I thought we'd just walk through kind of how you did it.
Sure.
So the day to night sort of stuff where he's putting his hand through, just walk me through what you did on set.
It was really kind of deliberate and planned out, so we did multiple setups on different times of different days. So we had a night setup and a day setup. paying very close attention to camera placement and all that stuff to make the compositing as easy as
Right,
possible.
so if we were on set now, you'd like set the camera up and say, okay guys, we have to come back here tomorrow night.
Exactly.
So someone measure this spot.
Yeah, our assistant cameras were amazing, and
Okay.
it was almost spot on, just some slight tweaking.
So I actually thought you might have done a bit of it in just grading, but you were
Well, we
actually...
did.
Oh, okay.
That's when he actually jumps through. The intention was to try and use 2 pieces, but it was ultimately more difficult, and so we just ended up grading it.
So when his hand's going through, is his hand from the same plate as his arm, or are you matching that?
Yeah, we actually tracked his hand on. We shot it a couple different ways to see which would work best, but we found that when he's actually penetrating that light, we were able to just kind of match his hand using a stabilizer.
It is actually like tough, isn't it? Because if you try doing day for night, it's okay if it's overcast, but once you get high con shadows, you really can't grade them out.
It's very difficult, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now he runs inside, we do the bomb sequence, which is kind of fun, and I love his bemused look over all of that with the box. I've seen actors on set look like that, right? So this is what? It's like, can you act? Just pretend it's a bomb. What? It would be better if you had a bomb here. Okay, but I want to talk about the roof jumping
Sure.
sequence. So I guess that's also an epic, or that slow motion shot with the puddle?
Yeah, that was an interesting day because we actually got rained out, and it was pouring torrential rain, and my DP was like, let's get some slow-mo running through puddles shots. We're here. And ended up working really well, I thought, just as the over-the-top kind of action film typical shot. Yeah.
So I assume he wasn't a stuntman. He wasn't jumping into an airbag or something.
Actually, he was a stuntman.
Oh, really?
We deliberately hired a stuntman who had great acting chops because we were asking him to do a lot of stuff. That whole sequence where he's jumping, we had elements of him jumping into bags on green and falling into harnesses. He actually wanted to jump off the building, and I was like, the point is we have to kind of do it in post because that's the gag. So.
Okay, so when he goes off, is he on a wire rig then, or when does he get onto the
we
wire rig?
We had a dead man harness, so he could run full speed right up to the end and actually jump. So the moment where he's jumping, that's actually real.
Yeah.
But obviously the harness would pull him back, and then we can cut to the over the shoulder shots, and then when he's actually falling, we filmed him on a rig on green, and then just put the sky behind.
So obviously one of the points of that is to appeal to a crowd like us that gets it, right? So you cut to your operator. Is that an actor? Who's actually operating?
He's actually a guy who works for me, Ryan Denis, who also did all the sound and audio editing for the film.
Okay, well, big shout out to him then. Okay, so how hard was that to kind of mentally get your head around? Because in one sense you kind of, from an editorial point of view, at what point are you sort of deciding I should be raw? At what point are you faking out the raw to make it fit in the story?
It was difficult. It started in the scripting process, so I knew pretty specifically where I wanted those moments to happen. But then we kind of deliberately left it loose, and it was nice because as we were working on it, I could use those screen setups to actually use for the monitor burned in, so it wasn't a total, redo.
I've sat in flame suites with clients over my shoulder. I've never sat in a flame suite with a doco crew filming me to put into a film. We've got some more making of footage. Let's play that, but we're going to talk over the top of it so you can walk us through what we're looking at.
Sure.
And this is stuff that's available online, so you can watch the whole thing. But again, we'll just take a sample of it. So the guys will cue that up. And this footage and the making of was a deliberate package from the outside, right? So
yes.
You always intended to shoot this as like a making of thing, right?
Yeah, we had a guy dedicated
nice
on
shot,
set.
by the way.
No, thank you. A guy dedicated on set to actually film some B-roll stuff, and then Autodesk came in and did a quick little interview.
Oh, so you didn't make this bit?
No, they actually put this together.
Oh, I assumed that you made the film and made its own making of at the same time.
No, we did not.
Oh, so it came back as a secondary thing.
Right.
Oh, well, that's good, because actually it's sometimes hard to serve two masters.
Exactly.
So this is like a lot of fun, but what's your sort of day job like? What are you doing when you're not getting Autodesk to make you make films?
Primarily we're a visual effects vendor. We work on films and television. Pilot season's coming up, so we'll be doing a handful of pilots, and yeah. But this is kind of, I got the itch back.
Really?
I'm really excited to be doing some more, content creation, which is where my passion has always lay, and I'm excited to get back to it.
Because I remember when you did the original 405, I'm pretty sure they flew you to Singapore, didn't they?
They did, yeah. We got to go to Broadcast Asia in Singapore, and
so you get flown all around the world for making a viral video. That's in the days that it was a novel idea.
It was, yeah, it was kind of a unique thing at that time.
I got to say, I really like the work that you've done, and I particularly like the way that you've managed to focus on story, because one of the things that's incredibly obvious is sometimes people get new bits of kit, and it's all about just, like, I don't know, when everyone got sliders, right? There was a million shots of sliders of
I worked on
flowers and, bowls of fruit. And your stuff's always been narratively driven.
Well, I appreciate that. That's always been very, very important to me. And the tools, I was excited about visual effects and learning it early on in my career because I saw it as a way to tell stories that I couldn't otherwise tell. And when Autodesk brought this project to me, that was their big concern, was the story and highlighting the tool as a storytelling tool.
Because I think we last spoke when you were working on some big effects for one of the big features.
Yeah, 300.
300, yeah, and it was the scene up the top where she's doing the Oracle stuff. Yeah, and it was great. I really loved that scene. It was just mesmerizingly well shot. So
thank you.
Thanks. Well, we've got a bit more of a clip we can play out with that'll give you a rundown of what's going. So we'll go to that in a second. But what's next for you? Like, where are you?
I am full blown into doing some content development now, and I'm kind of rethinking my whole business model.
Your own feature though, or is it not? Is it more alternative media models?
Actually, with Bruce, who I did 405 with, we've had a feature script that's been in turnaround and development hell forever, and we're kind of like, maybe we should look at figuring out how to. It's high concept science fiction.
Oh, I love it. I love good science fiction. So, I mean, obviously we say this a lot. It's all about the story and stuff, and yet it's really great when you can do amazing visuals to tell a really good story, right?
It helps.
Yeah. So you've had a chance to work with some really good filmmakers. So I certainly would love to see you helm a shot. So I look forward and I hope that comes off. Well, we're going to go out now, but thanks so much for being with us. We've got a clip from your another bit of the making of. Thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So the film is about a guy who's just trying to get through his day and is constantly interrupted by this godlike force, which happens to be an editor / visual effects artist who is unknowingly manipulating this character's world. I wanted to do a project that kind of played off of the idea of filmmaking, and specifically post-production filmmaking, and that seemed to fit with what Autodesk was looking for in a project. So it was a good match, I think. I saw that Autodesk was releasing Smoke for this free trial. And I just happened to be at a perfect time where I needed to recut my reel and I wasn't working on a project. So I said, you know what, this is good. Got the media in, started editing. Within 4 hours, I had a good edit done, and I was just shocked by how well the effects were integrated into the editor. With Smoke, I got my timeline. I go in, I can adjust some very basic things. I can do very complex comps. So after that 4 hours, I just literally tweeted, I love Smoke, and Mark Hamaker instantly sent me a DM and said, hey, we should talk. With the production of Fix It in Post, I definitely didn't want to go single-man style. I knew I wanted it to have a much bigger feel, a very professional, polished feel, but at the same time, we didn't have unlimited budget. We had to keep things very tight and concise.
Look back at the wires.
We shot Fix It in Post on Red Epic.
And they're getting painted out.
For us, it was the best. It allowed us to shoot at an extreme high quality, but yet the accessibility and affordability was in line with our budget. And it just looks stunning. And what was immensely unique about this project, and not one that I've really ever heard about or experienced, is that a big-time company came to me and said, make us something. We don't have a preconceived idea what it is going to be. We just want something cool that shows off what you can do using our software. And that doesn't happen. Usually it's, you get some agency, you get constraints, you get requirements, and this was bring us something cool. If we think it's cool, we'll be happy. It was probably one of the best experiences I've had working for a client.
Real-time capabilities is what. Welcome back, everyone, here at NAB. John Montgomery with Philippe Suero. Thanks for joining us, Philippe.
Hey, everybody.
Appreciate you showing up, because I got some grief after our last podcast that people thought I bloodied you. Had a really difficult podcast back at the end of the year.
No worries, seriously, no. I thought, no, you made the right points, and no, I thought it was totally legitimate. I think you were speaking also the voice of a user, which is great. So, no worries, seriously.
Well, it really was a monumental release, I think, and I mean, I really appreciate the new workflow. I think a lot of artists do, but you know, let's talk about some of those things that we did discuss and see where we're at nowadays. Things like, one of the things we talked about was the responsiveness of the Media Hub compared to what we used to be used to with the hard import. What's the status of that?
Right, okay. Well, I think I'm happy to say that at the show we're presenting something that's, you know, a very significant improvement compared to what people experienced with the first release in September. The Media Hub has undergone a lot of performance optimizations, both on the browsing side, and the fact on the overall experience about how intrusive it would be just to wait for things to get displayed on the screen. Those days are really gone. I'm happy to say at this point that it's a much smoother experience, and also, so really what the experience that users should have is at this point is that if they double-click on Navigate and start showing proxies are displayed instantly. If you can continue to navigate, interrupt things at any point in time. And when you import stuff, also the application is a lot better about communicating what it's doing, which is another concern that actually users had. So I think we're, in some instances, I want to say that we're faster than the legacy import and the legacy browsing engine that we had. So I think we're in a much better position than we were. So we heard the concerns, and they were very legitimate, and I think we've acted on a lot of it.
Right. I mean, again, that was a key thing when we were in Flame, conforming large file sequences of dealing with high-numbered, lots of channels, lots of files and directory. You can't be bogged down by that, so it's good news.
Yeah. So again, as I said, like we've been trying to do tests, and I guess, you know, to our users, if they come up on situations that are still problematic, I would say, you know, bring it on. Tell us what's happening. We are very committed to actually making sure that it works the way that people would expect, and while maintaining, you know, like the rich browsing experience that we discussed in making the Media Hub, which was one of our intentions, is making sure we displayed the proxies that we could scrub, that you had access to the metadata, stuff that you wouldn't have in a regular, let's say, file browser. And so I'm happy that we managed to preserve the best of both worlds.
Right. Did you have to remove functionality to make that faster? I mean, it kind of
no, we've had to make a lot of shortcuts. But at the end of the day, we didn't actually remove functionality, so that's good. I'm actually quite happy about the end result. So yeah.
Well, another aspect of it, I mean, I think I used it as the bad word, the gateway and so forth, but there's a lot of background processes now that happen in the software, and I have been using the service pack that you're showing here on the show floor. And one of the things I like is the new notification center of actually what's going on, because it had this thing of sending something out to the ether and hoping it gets done. But so that's changed.
Yes, that's changed significantly, and it's part of its, you know, so that message was well received also from the users, and it's kind of like an initiative that is probably going to take us through a couple of releases where we really are trying to improve the way just the application communicates about what it's doing, and directly in the application without having to open some browser, you know, Safari browser or anything. It's in-app. And yes, now you have this direct control and monitoring of what's happening. If anything goes wrong, it actually tells you, which I think was really a big problem. Also, we've also improved the way that the progression of a task is actually displayed directly within the application. So it doesn't go from 0 to 99% as it had a tendency to do in some export jobs. So.
Right. What about the reliability? Because that's another issue that, you know, I think there's a point about moving buttons around and losing the ability to restart. I mean, how's that been addressed?
Listen, this service pack has been a lot about that, and it's sometimes a bit embarrassing to talk about statistics, but I mean, really, I think at the end of the day, we fixed over 850 issues in the application, which means that they were there before, but yeah, so there's a lot of effort that went in actually addressing small things, and but with a big impact.
Right.
So we feel a lot more comfortable about the stability of the overall product, and actually even the communication between the background processes that you mentioned, just the speed at which we would submit something to Backburner, also was part of the equation in feeling that it was sluggish.
Right.
Well, something was just submitted as a background task. It used to take a lot of time. It's been drastically accelerated. And again, the application tells you that it's submitting things as opposed to just waiting there.
Well, you did say in that conversation, wait, we're going to update often, and you have. It's 3 service factors, I think more than has happened before in the past. But what else has been improved in the software that maybe I haven't noticed? Just because I haven't used the software as much as I have in the past.
Part of the things actually that we discussed in the last podcast, you mentioned worries about the desktop, for example, and the desktop, is
the speed we're talking about.
The speed, exactly.
You had the really fast cut pace, move things around.
Exactly. So people, we heard the feedback that they felt that was sluggishness, and at that time, actually, my answer to was actually saying that the desktop actually did a lot more than it did in the past.
Right.
And so we've actually restored its snappiness. So it should feel a lot closer to the experience that users had in previous versions of Flame. Actually, I think right now at this point it would be really on par.
Is that with even broadcast monitoring enabled?
No,
okay.
Actually it came at the detriment of that, but it's actually, you choose, you decide when it's relevant for you to actually have. And actually one thing, so the compromise is that the desktop doesn't force to push to the broadcast as it did in the first release, but if you're in thumbnail view, that will still, like in this smoke type thumbnail view, that will still push automatically to the broadcast, but the desktop won't. That's a preference at this point. So you can decide whether or not it's relevant for you to actually have that feedback in the desktop, and that will come at a cost in terms of performance. But in some instances, it's actually really cool when you're actually using the desktop also as a visual editorial tool in conjunction with a timeline.
Yeah, it depends how you're using it for certain. Anything else in the book? Miss out?
Yes, lots of tweaks also, performance optimizations. Some of them can actually go unnoticed. We've actually also improved significantly the way that textures get loaded into the GPU. This is something that you won't necessarily notice in every single instance, but typically large setups of action that call multiple layers. This is where you load.
Actually, it's interesting you say that. I just actually load something in with a big video wall of images for show open that I done. I was just revising an old spot that did 7 years ago. It actually loaded, by the way. So congrats on that.
Good.
First time.
Good.
But
That's
it
good.
did actually seem more responsive than I expected it to.
Well, yeah, that would be part of the again an implementation of functionality that's in the GPU that allows to quite significantly accelerate the speed at which you can actually bring the textures into the GPU memory, and as a result, in every instances where actually it was a bottleneck, it no longer is. So in those instances, it actually should feel like a more responsive tool. So we talked about the desktop, we talked about the Media Hub. There's, as I said, lots of bugs and also lots of little workflow things that we went and fixed around the application, and there are quite a big number of them actually. And this is also, listening to the feedback of the users who said that, we kind of get where you want to take this, but at the end of the day, when we're trying to use them, we kind of constantly hit little things. And if you look at them isolated, they're not that big of a deal, but the collection of those little things.
Pinpricks.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, we went ahead and actually tried to...
I mean, do you think some of that was a reaction? I mean, I think people were really impressed with the new workflow, but they did hit walls, and so the reaction wasn't kind of up to the level that you'd expect, when you had this brand new release. You think that had a lot to do with it, probably, at least from my feeling.
Well, okay, I guess, listen, it's been a very humbling experience. Exciting, but humbling at the same time. And I think it would be inaccurate to say that I did not expect any kind of pushback on this. I mean, it was very clear to me that we were...
You were in the podcast, you knew
that... for sure. And, I realized that there are also different types of users. Some people also are very attached to the muscle memory aspect of things, and I realized that this is a challenge for a lot of people, and at the end of the day, it is something that definitely weighs in the balance of how you appreciate the change. It's like, you know, you're changing my muscle memory, man. Why are you doing this to me?
Right.
And then I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of things that actually, you know, isn't on this is not like it used to be. But I think at the end of the day, you know, I think we were confronted to this situation. If we want Flame to move forward, we really had to make drastic changes to just the way the application behaves in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, in fairness, you're at that point of that launch saying, trust me, but putting a lot of faith in that. But you have, apparently, you've made significant improvements over the year. And I would even say that this would be an appropriate time to launch the 20th anniversary release. It seems at a first, you know, stable point. You did a really nice presentation yesterday in the Flame user group meetup after the show. That was nice, showing people how to use that. But I got to ask you, one of my favorite things about coming to NAB every year was back when we had the old Discrete and this user group meeting to see new stuff. That got moved to the show floor, but now we're not even seeing anything new on the show floor, per se, feature-wise and creative-wise. I mean, what are the reasons behind that?
I'll tell you what, the reasons are really is that, you know, with the feedback that we got, well, from yourself and other users, actually, it was very clear that we were in a situation where the emergency was for us to fix our shit, sorry, but you know, we just had to do it.
Streaming, it's okay.
Oh, it's streaming, okay, good. So, well, that was the utmost priority. I mean, there was nothing, you know, if people are not able to use this for the stuff that they do on a daily basis, that's a huge problem. So, you know, Autodesk in the past has already done the thing of charging for a release that fixes bugs. And that did not go very well. So what we're doing here is we're saying, no, we're just fixing stuff and it's a service pack, okay?
Yeah, right.
That's what we're doing. And of course it comes at the detriment of actually showing new stuff, but I think we're actually putting our priorities where they should be, which is really making sure that people can use the software, feel comfortable making that leap of faith, because it is a bit of, you know, a leap of faith. It's challenging for everybody. There's a risk also for users, you know, especially in those client-attended sessions where you're like, oh, how am I going to be perceived? It's very important that actually people take us seriously in this change, and there's no turning back for us. We really stand by the changes that we made, but it has to work.
Well, we're on a fixed time. Before we go, I want to just pick your brain on, I know you can't talk about specific features in the software, but where do you feel now that you've got this really solid work and fixed a lot of this, where does it need to go from a creative standpoint, interactivity standpoint, in 60 seconds or less?
Oh, in 60 seconds. Okay. Well, you know, I keep saying in a very parabolic fashion, but we definitely believe that, again, something like a clip or a timeline or a flow graph are things that are very interchangeable concepts, and they are really at the core of the vision that we have for the product. And we believe that, you know, concepts that are very familiar in a grading workflow are very powerful if they were cross-pollinating with VFX. So that's very much some of the guiding principles that are behind everything that we're doing right now. And so it's a puzzle. We only show small stuff. It's baby steps as we move forward, but we have a vision and we're taking this somewhere. That's as much as I can say.
Well, I hope also some improvements in real-time interactivity for things like grading the timeline and not having to render dissolves.
Definitely, yes. We are not making any mysteries about this. It's a huge portion of our agenda. Optimizing the batch pipeline, focusing on a single pipeline, which we think is batch because it's a flow graph. And it actually already exists inside of a timeline structure. So this is something that is very dear to us, and we are heavily investing in actually optimizing that.
Well, as a user, I appreciate the efforts in getting things fixed and those bugs that we talked about in the podcast last year. Putting up with me on that podcast and being nice.
No worries, it's
to
good.
me about that. But, I mean, it really is apparent. I mean, kudos to you guys for actually doing what you said you would do and fixing those. And from my standpoint, hopefully now we'll be able to see more creative features, more cool tools, and you know, things that Flame has been known for over the years, now that that foundation is really solid and getting laid.
We share that same hope too.
Well, thank you so much. Well, that's it for the conversation with Philippe. We'll be back with more for here in the Foundry booth in NAB 2013 here in just a bit.
fxguidetv Live at NAB 2013 from Las Vegas is sponsored by The Foundry, developers of creative tools for artists, including Nuke, Hero, Mari, Moto, and more. With additional support from Blackmagic Design, Miller Tripods, Rode Microphones, SohoNet, and the Wooden Camera Company. This netcast is also made possible by the contributions of our FX Insider members.
So where are we, John? How many more hours am I standing on this spot? I believe another 2 or so?
Another 2 hours. You've got a lot of great stuff coming up. More from the Foundry
Moto?
coming up next. Moto, yep. Visit with conversation with Steve Ford, as well as coverage of Blackmagic Design's announcements, and then more cool nuke stuff that Method did in just a bit to round out the show at the end.
Yeah, now people have been firing tons of hashtags at us. We're trying to get to them as fast as we can. Unfortunately, someone just said, hey, did Jeremy grade that film on smoke? And by the time I got my thing out, I was like, where's Jeremy gone? I just been chatting with Jeremy, so I'll try and find that out later for you. But we are reading them all, trying to get to as many as we can. And if we can't answer them on air here, we're posting those answers back. But the hashtag is
hash fxguidetv.
I keep on saying fxguidetv, which of course is exactly what don't do that. Do fxgnab as a hashtag.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, we've devoted our full bandwidth here at the booth to the streaming. And so one thing we're not able to see is the chat stream as part of the Ustream feed that you see on the FX Guide site. So you guys can chat amongst yourselves. We're not going to see it. So if you want to get a question to us, use that hashtag on Twitter to ask any questions.
Yeah, I think Twitter's pretty,
it works
you can always
great.
Individually email us if you don't have an account, but I don't know how much to call you. Yeah, right. Excuse me 1 second. I just got to take this call. No. Yeah, that's good. So look, we've started the new term, and we've been covering some of the stuff that's been going on there. But, clearly we'd be remiss if we didn't point out that in addition to the stuff that you've been seeing, there's a lot of stuff happening with the VPN licenses, and I just want to flag that because it is a huge part of one of the things that people can do. In seeing all this stuff here, and you'll see Nuke or whatever it is, and you're thinking, maybe I want to get into that, sometimes that can be difficult. You can all very well saying, do a training course, but if you don't have the software, you can't do it. We know that, we understood that from day one. So John, how does that work?
Well, basically, if you're a member, you basically sign in, create a VPN connection, and you're able to run the license. We have the license server that's running on our machine. So you just download the software, install it, point the license server to us, works great. And like as mentioned earlier, we've got the new versions of Nuke, as well as Hero 1.7 new this term.
And Houdini, right?
Yeah, and the new version of Houdini to go along with that course.
Just so if you don't know what VPN is, just so you understand, let's say we're at a facility, and John is running the facility, and he also controls IT, and I'm just an artist. I sit down at my desk. I don't license each individual machine. It goes to a central server that the facility would have set up and said, hey, can this guy run Nuke?
Yeah.
So we do that effectively, but across the world.
Yeah, it's a great way to learn, follow along with the courses, and it really makes the most out of your membership at FXPHG. Let's go ahead and cross to more of what we have on offer in the new April term. It's not even been a month since the new version of Houdini was released, version 12.5. We've already got a new course here at FX PhD and the software available on the VPN to learn it. Leading the course is Jonathan Gilbert, and he's going to be working through some of the great new features in it, things like cloud effects and ocean effects, as well as some of the optimizations. Let's hear from him what he's got planned for this new Boot Camp in Houdini course.
Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Gilbert, and welcome to Houdini 207, Houdini 12.5 Boot Camp. Getting up to speed with the new features. Houdini 12.5 includes a variety of exciting new features. Some of these include cloud effects, ocean effects, OpenVDB volume sculpting tools, optimizations to lighting and rendering, flip fluids, and much more. With all these new features and enhancements, it can be overwhelming to catch up, regardless of which version of Houdini you are currently working in. In Houdini 207, we'll get you caught up with these new optimizations and tools so that you can feel comfortable using them in your own projects. We'll look at the exciting new Ocean Effects tools, in particular the Ocean Effects Wave and Ocean Effects Wave Tank tools. With Houdini 12.5, the ability to create vast oceans is built in directly along with a whole suite of additional refinement and layering tools to complete tasks such as adding foam, bubbles, spray, and mist to your ocean. Next is the new Cloud Effects tools, which allow you to easily create volumetric cloud systems. These tools make use of OpenVDB's sparse volume sculpting tools. Their integration into Houdini is the result of the direct collaboration between Side Effects and DreamWorks Animation. There are also a number of low-level VDB volume sculpting tools that will give you greater control over manipulating volumes even outside of actual cloud effects. We'll explore these tools in detail and have a discussion on how powerful sparse volumes actually are. We'll touch on optimizations and changes that have been made in flip fluids since pre-Houdini 12, such as built-in viscosity control, as well as the ability to animate the density and viscosity, speed increases, and the relationship to OpenVDB. We'll wrap it up by looking at some of the lighting and rendering enhancements. This includes the new volume light, which supports the use of volumes as a source. Optimizations to IPR for much faster feedback when adjusting material parameters, and improvements to Mantra in terms of speed and rendering volumes in particular. It's time to get yourself caught up and ready to use the newest features that Houdini 12.5 has to offer so you don't get left behind. I hope to see you in Houdini 207, Houdini 12.5 Bootcamp, getting up to speed with the new features. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Well, our next new course is actually one that I'm doing. It's a maths course. Now, this is a 200 level course. We did a 100 level course about 3 or 4 years ago. This course will actually repeat some of that material, but it's going to take it to a new level. Moreover, we're going to include exterior stuff, on-location stuff. That's why I'm out here now. Because in talking to VFX supervisors around the world for, obviously, FX Guide, something that started becoming aware to me is how often maths has to be used on set to just problem solve, to get out of a hole. And senior supervisors just kind of working things out on the back of an envelope. So in addition to looking at the kind of maths you need to, say, solve the render equation and understand a SID graph paper, we're going to give you the maths that you need to problem solve on set and work through some examples. Plus, we'll have some guest VFX supervisors dropping in to give just, tidbits, odd comments of things that have come up for them over the course of their time doing stuff. So that's a new 200 level maths course coming out of Sydney. Also coming out of Sydney is Background Fundamentals. Now this isn't a course, this is a free weekly sort of course that you get as part of your FX PhD membership. And we're going to cover a variety of subjects because it isn't a sort of a strict course. You don't have to sign up for it, it's just available for download. This time we're going to have a bit of fun, but we're also going to focus on the business side of the business. This comes out of requests from last term. We did a few business courses last term, they were very popular, so we're going to expand that this term. So in Background Fundamentals, we'll be covering a lot of business stuff, how to compete, how to quote, how to bid, how to deal with staff. So all that coming up in Background Fundamentals, which I say is free with any membership here. Well, I have one more course to introduce, but before I get to that, I just want to flag the returning courses. We have a stack of returning courses, about 40 of them, including a bunch of courses that were just so popular that we're repeating them with the professor. These are some of our most popular courses ever, and they include Modo, that's stuff to do with Cinema 4D, and of course Nuke. There's a ton of them. Check them out at fxphd.com. Well, our last new course is our Katana 200 level course, building on last term's 100 level course with Matt Leonard.
In our intermediate Katana course, we'll take everything we've learned in Katana 101 and put it into practice by adding a CG character into 2 live-action plates. During the term, we'll be working with 3D track data and building stand-in geometry for the environments using Maya. We'll be completing look development within Katana for the entire character, along with various environment assets as required. When it comes to lighting the scene, we'll be utilizing localized HDR lighting with Katana's use of RenderMan's globe illumination technology, and then setting up various render passes. Finally, we'll move into Nuke and complete the final composite. This production-focused course is ideal for anyone interested in state-of-the-art look development and lighting techniques, which are currently being used in companies such as ILM and Sony Picture Image Works. As with our 100 level course, FX PhD is still the only place to get Katana training, and therefore a must for anyone interested in moving forward in this exciting aspect of visual effects. I look forward to having you on the course, and with that I hand you back to Mike and John.
Well, some of you may have noticed that we're still one course short, and that's because, well, we're suffering one of the things that we do because we really like having practicing VFX professionals teaching our courses, and sometimes production deadlines get in the way, they get extended, and that's the case what happened with one of our courses, and so we had to kind of cancel it for the term, regroup, and come up with a new one.
Yeah, feature films do slip a bit sometimes.
Yes, it is true. But anyway, rather than have the classes be delayed and have problems, we decided to just regroup and come out with a brand new one, and we'll be having details of that in the coming days. Now, one of the great things about FX PhD, in addition to the courses, Background Fundamentals, and the other things we've talked about, is VPN software. We have over $40,000 worth of software available for you on the VPN, for you to learn the software as well as create shots for your reel. And new this term, we have the addition of Hero for the first time ever, the recently released Houdini 12.5, as well as Moto 701. So it's a great selection of software that comes with your membership of FXPhD.
Another really good thing is the forums. It gives you a chance to talk to professors of the courses that you're doing, which is brilliant, but it also connects you with all the other members. And I'm going to say one of the things we're kind of proudest of is the quality of the members at FXPhD. And these guys have gone on to not only sort of go on to do bigger and better things, many of them actually have ended up opening their own facilities and just doing some amazing work around the world. And it's sort of, not to put too fine a point on it, it's a really great chance to kind of network out to peers and to connect up with people around the world. And we've seen that, haven't we? With people just hooking up with people, and that's gone on to lead to amazing business relationships and really lifelong friendships. So it's a terrific community.
Yeah, there are lots of people in Europe who've gotten together, even formed virtual collaboration companies of sorts online. So another great aspect of FXPhD. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this look at the new courses at FXPhD. We hope you'll become a member this term. So thanks for taking time for watching, and we'll see you in the forums.
See you in the forums, guys.
Welcome back, guys, and we got a request on Twitter to actually take a look at a little bit of the tech behind the scenes here. We're going to do a behind the scenes video that we didn't do this year because we're actually troubleshooting right up until the show start. Willem from the Foundry is really helpful in helping us get the internet up and running, because it died a mere 15 minutes before we started the live stream. But this is the control room in the back, and as you can see, it's a bit cramped. We've got Ryan Pribble and Jeff Huser directing. It's a really fantastic, nice setup. A lot of gear from Blackmagic. Of course, you've seen that we're utilizing the Blackmagic digital cinema cameras, and those are being fed into the ATEM software or hardware, which is a switch that takes HDMI and SDI video in. Now, Ryan, instead of having a big bulky control panel in this very tight space, you can see that Ryan's got software that actually switches the various cameras and feeds that we can see actually in the main live feed. So it works out really, really nicely. In addition to that, this year we bumped up to a very nice digital audio mixer, a Yamaha as well. Basically needing to cover more mics, more features, things like delay and things like that. To really need to kind of bump up the game after what we learned last year. Now the Ustream, basically what happens is once the video runs through the ATEM switcher, it gets fed into our Mac Pro tower that we have. And those are the two displays that we have. One display actually that we have set up on the left running the Ustream Studio software. Nice lower third call on that, Jeff. Which basically takes the software and allows us to put in lower thirds like you just saw, roll in video packages and things like that, and then basically get the feed out on the interwebs. Goes up to Ustream. Ustream then basically sends it out to everyone. And it's really an effective setup. Ryan Pribble, who's basically been the genius behind setting this whole thing up and doing it in a really nice way, really quite affordable, works really well for us. In addition to that, something that's new for both Mike and myself is an old hat for Mr. Huser. He used to be a TV news director. He's got a headset. So this allows Jeff to, obviously talk to the camera folks that we have. We have 3 cameras on set, as well as inside these earpieces, at times annoying earpieces, I might add, to get us to talk, and Jeff gives us visual cues. But basically allows them to talk in our ears and let us know what's going on, how much time's got left. I have also Chelsea Pribble, who's helping out and managing and producing this on the floor. So it's really a nice setup. And we did some tests back in Chicago setting this up, as well as Los Angeles, to determine a bit rate that worked. But we felt all of you could actually handle on your internet connections, as well as get a really nice UI. And I think those of you who watched our stream last year will notice a marked improvement in the quality of our stream this year because we really bumped it up. So anyway, we really hope you're enjoying the live streaming that we do. This is the kind of tech scene that these guys are having to put up with. So really, seriously, these guys don't get on camera, but they're the ones that really help make the whole thing happen here at the Foundry booth. Anyway, close the door, let them work, and we'll head on back over. Headed over here to Mike, and Mike's going to introduce the next Foundry segment.
Well, I was lucky enough to end up in Northern California when Moto was hooking up with the Foundry. I think it's awesome that they're doing this. We've got a Moto demo about to start here on the Foundry booth, so let's go over to the Foundry. Bex, it's all over to you.
Hello. Awesome. Welcome back, Internet people. We are now on our Modo slot. We have Luc van Dries, who's come all the way from Belgium to speak. He is the MD at Creative Conspiracy. He will be showing 2 projects, one of which was an award-winning commercial. The other one is a children's broadcast show that is being broadcasted throughout the whole of Europe. So this is a really interesting spot. I'm going to let Luc take over and do his thing. He's going to be available for questions afterwards. So if you've got any questions on Twitter, please send them through. The guys are picking them up. If you've got any questions for Luc, please keep sending them through. So over to you, darling.
Sound? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Luc. I'm the MD of a company called Creative Conspiracy based in Belgium. Before I tell you a bit more about our company, I'm going to start by showing you a short demo reel of about 2 minutes that shows some of the projects that we did in the past. Thank you. So, as I told you before, we're a small studio based in Belgium. Some people may wonder where Belgium is. Well, just draw a straight line from Vegas to London, overshoot a bit, and then you're in Belgium. If you overshoot a bit more, you're out of Belgium again. That's how small we are. So what we do, I think you've noticed from the demo reel, we do a lot of character animation. Just to give you a few examples, character animation is always a great way to get your message across. For example, on the left, an insurance company that wants to show somebody's head on fire. You can't do that in life, or you probably have a big problem afterwards. If you want to have a shootout between a photoreal cup of coffee and a hand to see who's the fastest and grabs the cookie, you can do that too in a character animation. You can bring other messages across. On the left, one commercial we did for a public transport company called The Lane, and I'm going to talk about another commercial we did for the same company in a few minutes. On the right, some grains getting basically ready to die and to be part of a cookie. We do long-term projects also. These are two projects currently in development. The project on the left, called Ray and Ruby, will go in production around September. On the right, Tuk Tuk, who's the smartest inventor who's ever lived. Or maybe he's the most stupid. We still don't know yet, so we're trying to find out. And then two projects that we already finished, and I'm going to talk about the one on the left a bit more. That's called Uki. On the right, Glumpies. Then, so the two projects that I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail is called, so Uki on the left and the Ants commercial on the right. I will show it to you in a few minutes. First, a bit of history concerning the technical aspect. We've started out as a lightwave only studio. When the Modo modeling became more mature, we switched our modeling part to Modo. And character animation became more and more important for us, so the animation part we switched over to Maya. Then I think that would have been Modo 301, 401. The rendering became mature also, so we switched the rendering part to Modo. 701 is just out like 2 weeks or something like that. That means that there is a lot of character animation possibilities now in Modo 2, setuping, rigging, all that stuff is there now. We're evaluating it at this moment to switch over to a full Modo pipeline in the near future. So the first project I'm going to talk about is Uki. Before I continue, I will show you a small extract from the series of about 1 minute. So this was just a small piece of an episode called Rabbit Wants to Fly. I'm going to tell you a bit more about Uki. So it's a high-quality 3D animation series made for really small children, so going from 1 to 4. We produced 52 episodes of 5 minutes. We were on a tight budget, as is always the case for children's programs. The production period was about 2 years, and we wanted the final render to be like we wanted it, a fresh, colorful look. So we used radiosity, subsurface scattering on about everything, not only the characters, but also the environment. And everything was rendered out in full HD. So the pipeline in a bit more detail. So we did all the modeling in Modo. We export to Maya using the FBX file format, not the latest version, but a few versions back, because there are some problems with the newest versions. So we do all the rigging, setuping, and animation in Maya. Then we export the point data from Maya to an MDD file, or a point cache file as it's sometimes called. We apply the MDD in Modo. I'm going to show you how that's done. And afterwards we render out all the layers we need. We composite everything together, and then we're basically done. I'm just going to switch to the other machine right now to show you a few examples. I'm good, yep. So first of all, I'm just going to start by showing just an Uki character. I'm going to switch to another layout, the model layout. The layout switching, that's something that's new for Modo 701. So basically, if some of you have already seen a 3D modeler or animation program, this looks pretty much like everyone else. This is just a model that was made in Modo, but there's a very big advantage to Modo, and that's the preview renderer. I'm going to just press F8. That's what I did right now, but this machine is so fast that it's already done. So you see a render of the model that you're working on. Some other programs have that feature too. There's interactive rendering. Some people call it real-time rendering, which it is not. It's progressive rendering, very important. But in Modo, you can do a little bit more. I'm not going to do a lot to this model, but I'm just going to show you that while the preview renderer is open over there, you just can go just to pick one, select an edge, make modifications to the model, let go, and then see that the preview is updated in real time while you're basically editing your model. You can add geometry while you're rendering. You can change surface parameters as you go, so no problem whatsoever. This means that this is also accelerating the modeling process because you'll immediately see what you're doing and what you're going to get at the end. So next steps is we export this to Maya, rig and animate, and then we come back to Modo, and that's what I'm going to show next. So we're a bit further in production right now. So I skipped a few weeks or months, maybe. So we've modeled the set in Modo. We've modeled the characters, but as you can see, they're in the wrong place. They're in T-pose. That's because the animation data coming in from Maya hasn't been applied yet. I'm going to do that right now. Applying this animation data can easily be automated. In our studio, we have scripts for that, so we basically don't do it the way I'm going to show it right now. But just to show you how easy it is, I'm going to do it by hand now. So we have the Uki model over here. We're going to add what's called an MDD influence. There's a scaling difference between Maya and Modo. That's why I have to change one small value over here. When I do that, Uki jumps into place and the animation data is applied. Going to do the same thing for the rabbit. Apply the file. Change the scaling. And I'm a bit struggling with the cables over here, so